Welcome to my podcast. I'm Christine Schultheis, intuitive coach and constellation facilitator. And in this podcast, I invite you to join me on a journey into the world of constellation work. I share my personal experiences, touching moments from my practice, and the unseen connections that deeply shape our lives. Some questions cannot be answered by the mind, and yet somewhere an answer is waiting for us, beyond thinking, in the space where we meet ourselves again. That's exactly where this podcast will take you, step by step, story by story. I'm glad you're here. Episode 4: Relationships: Why we keep attracting the same kind of people. Welcome to episode 4. In this episode, I'd like to talk about something that touches every one of us: relationships. Most of us long for loving, fulfilling, and lasting partnership. We want to feel seen, supported, and deeply connected. And yet, again and again, we find ourselves in situations that don't feel right. Maybe you have experienced it yourself. You meet someone new and you think, this time it will be different. This time I'll take good care of myself. This time I won't lose myself in the relationship. And this time I won't be jealous or controlling. I won't fall into those same arguments again. You tell yourself, I've learned from the past. I understand what went wrong last time. And yet, after a while, you realize that somehow the same pattern is repeating. Different face, different story, same energy. But why does this happen? Why do we keep attracting the same kind of person even when our mind knows exactly what we don't want? The answer often lies deeper than we think, within the invisible dynamics of our family system. In constellation work, I see it again and again. Behind painful or unfulfilled relationships are unseen bonds. Bonds that tie us to earlier generations, to lost loves, to old anger, to hidden grief, or to fates that were never acknowledged in the family. Sometimes, without realizing it, we carry something that doesn't belong to us. We take it on simply because we want to belong, because deep down we love our family. Let me share a few stories from my work to make this more tangible. Some time ago, a woman came to me who repeatedly fell in love with men who were already taken, men in committed relationships. It wasn't a conscious choice. She didn't seek them out. But again and again, such men appeared in her life, as if drawn by an invisible magnet. At first, everything seemed perfect, and only later, when she was already emotionally involved, she discovered he was not free. By then, her heart had already opened. In her constellation, we discovered that she was unconsciously entangled with a former partner of her mother. Before her mother married the client's father, she had been deeply in love with another man. But her own parents forbade that relationship. He was considered not suitable, not from the right background. So the mother turned away from the man she truly loved and chose a different path, one that looked proper on the outside, but left her heart unfulfilled. Her daughter, my client, carried this unfinished love story within her, as if she wanted to repair what had once been broken. It was like a silent promise: if my mother couldn't be happy, then I won't be either. Through her own failed relationships, she was unconsciously trying to stay loyal to her mother's pain and to the man who had been rejected. Only when both, the mother and her lost love, were seen and honored during the constellation, something began to change. The daughter could finally see the deep sacrifice her mother had made. She could see the pain of the man who had once loved her. And in that moment of acknowledgement, the love that had been frozen for decades began to move again, for the mother and also for the daughter, who could now open her heart and allow herself a relationship that was truly her own. Another woman came to me with a very different story. She couldn't find a partner at all, though she deeply longed for love. There was no clear reason. She was warm, successful, kind, and yet she kept ending up alone. In her constellation, we discovered a hidden bond to the sister of her grandmother, her great aunt. This woman had once given up the great love of her life in order to care for her family. She had sacrificed her own happiness for the sake of others. And my client, out of deep and unconscious love, repeated this pattern. She too remained alone, without knowing why. When her great aunt's sacrifice was finally acknowledged in the constellation, something shifted. The granddaughter felt a deep inner movement, as if an invisible permission had been given. She could finally say, I'm allowed to love. I'm allowed to live my own life. And from that moment, love could begin to flow again, freely, gently, naturally. And then there was another client, a woman who carried a strong anger toward men. At the same time, she longed for closeness. She wanted to be in a relationship, but every time things became serious, she withdrew. In her constellation, the source of her anger was revealed, and it lay far back in her family's history. Her father had been conceived through rape during the war by an enemy soldier. Her grandmother had accepted her child, yes, but she rejected everything masculine. She rejected men, and unknowingly, she also rejected a part of her own son. This rejection echoed down through the generations. The granddaughter, my client, carried the anger and pain of her grandmother within her. Only when she could see the entire story, including the perpetrator, her biological grandfather, could peace begin to enter their system. Not because the act was ever acceptable, but because what had been buried in silence was finally allowed to be seen. And in that moment, love began to move again, even in the place where it had once been deeply wounded. Stories like these show how deeply love and loyalty can shape our lives. We unconsciously repeat what has left unfinished in earlier generations, out of love, out of loyalty, out of the wish to carry what was too heavy for them. Sometimes we even carry something that was never ours to begin with: guilt, grief, or responsibility that someone else could not bear. For example, when parents stay together only because of the children, those children often sense it. They feel the hidden tension, the quiet sadness between their parents, and out of love, they may take on responsibility for their parents' happiness, a burden no child should ever have to carry. Later in life, the same pattern can make it hard for them to allow a truly happy relationship for themselves. Deep inside, an unconscious voice whispers, if my parents couldn't be happy, how could I? But in constellations, something beautiful becomes visible. It's less about finding the right partner and much more about becoming free from what binds us. When we honor the stories of our family, when we see the pain and give the responsibility back to where it belongs, our hearts can finally open. Then love can flow freely, without guilt, without fear. A love that can be lived today, a relationship that belongs to the present and not to the past. Thank you for being here today and for taking this journey with me into the deeper layers of love and relationship. Maybe as you were listening, you felt something resonate within you, a story, a feeling, or a family dynamic that also wants to be seen. If this episode touched you, I would love you to subscribe to my channel. That way, you'll automatically be notified when the next episode is released. And in our next episode, we'll explore the theme of success and why success is often blocked in the same places where love doesn't flow freely. I look forward to sharing that with you. And until then, with love, Christine Schulteis.